So we've learned a bunch about Black Ops 7, and there's a lot of things to be excited about and some still things to be nervous about. COD Next is just around the corner. We got that going on next week. I'll be live showing off some new gameplay for multiplayer, zombies, and then even whatever they're going to have for Warzone, which we'll talk a little bit later on in this. As of right now, I think Black Ops 7 is kind of shaping up to be a better Call of Duty than Black Ops 6 was for a few different reasons. And it seems like it's going to be better supported for better retention throughout the year based off everything we've seen for the campaign, multiplayer, and zombies. And even though it looks like Black Ops 7 fixes a lot of issues, for Warzone, I still got a lot of concerns, which I did a full video on last week if you want to go ahead and check that out. So some of the core issues that have haunted COD or plagued COD is obviously it comes out annually. It's done that for 20-ish years. And a lot of different things lead to fatigue in that sense, which I touched on that previous video, like SBMM, engagement optimized matchmaking, disbanded lobbies, it feeling less organic, more telegraphed what's going to happen, and the cheater issue that is seems more common than it should be based off the claims by Ricochet, so you really can't trust that. Not really supporting with post-launch content. That's like one of the biggest problems with Call of Duty, and they typically do this for multiplayer with weapons, specific events, which they have to be good and give you decent rewards, and then also maps. And that's kind of like the main thing that goes into it. And then for zombies, you want to get new map every season, along with some new perks, actually new, not reused, and then returning. Then they claim it's new. I think those are some of the bigger issues that have been plaguing COD when it comes to annually. Black Ops 6 initially had a ton of retention issues. The launch was great. A lot of people played it, and anyone who reached level 55 in the launch window was prestiging and engaging with that level of content, that so they were locked in on that next prestige, and it returning over 90% of players. I think it's quoted, I'll have it on the screen, that 90% of players that reach 55 within the launch window, they went on to prestige, and that's kind of crazy. But the content drop post-launch was a bit of a problem. It was far too thin. There wasn't enough good maps. I think MW3 did a significantly better job than this. And I think based off what we've seen from the leaks, rumors, and all the intel, that BO6 kind of held back a little bit in some areas, especially on the second half of the year, to really push everything towards BO7 and this next year of content. So BO7, it's addressed that in a few different ways. There's going to be more content spread across the year. The MP is going to have more maps, more weapons, but they're also going to add tons of other stuff in terms of the campaign. We'll actually get post-launch content, which hasn't happened before. And then zombies, obviously launching with a ton of stuff, ton of returning stuff, but they're going to get a new map every season with the cutscenes and all that stuff. So they've resolved a lot of bigger issues. And obviously you could be nitpicky and focus on very specific issues, because we all have those about various games that we play. But I think in terms of the main things that are make or break, they've gone to solve a lot of those. BO7 showing that Treyarch actually learned a ton of lessons from Black Ops 6, and they're course correcting to fix that, on top of some pre-beta changes that they've already made, which we'll discuss a little bit. But for Warzone, again, it's another story. It feels like we know nothing about it. We were all kind of hyped when Season 3 dropped with Verdansk. That returned, that was a big deal. And then it felt like the mode got forgotten after that. Cool, they made a couple casual changes. Cool, they had ranked every season. LTMs were kind of trash. Events were kind of whack. No, hardly any weapon balancing that was meaningful and worth engaging with. Although there were some changes here and there. You know, we got a few variety, but not near the level it needs to be, like we had in year 2 and year 3 of Warzone, which had just as many weapons, just had just as many more attachments, with 10 attachments in Vanguard. The variety of content that you can engage with in terms of a weapon standpoint, the floor loot, there's a lot of things that they're just neglecting. We have been told and leaked that the new Resurgence map is coming. It's supposed to be described as an extended Liberty Falls, which we've talked about. Again, I feel like that doesn't sound all that appealing. It feels more like a knockoff Vondel. I feel like they would have just been better off, hey, we're going to put out Vondel, and people that love Vondel, boom. And then we're going to have hopefully rotating maps, And maybe there's some kind of secret they're keeping with Verdansk, because I feel like another year on Verdansk without sizable map changes on a regular basis is a problem. Like, that is a huge problem. So I don't feel like Black Ops 7 will have much issues throughout the year. And Warzone, like I said, is a big red flag. So it's kind of weird because when you talk about COD, it's such a big bubble and there's a huge ecosystem of players that play various modes for various reasons. There's the hardcore community that play hardcore. There's the S&D community. There's the people who play high round zombies. There's the people that go for low round zombies. There's people that only do Easter eggs. There's people that unironically love the campaign and play the campaign a bunch. And then there's Warzone people. And then there's Resurgence people within that bubble. Then there's the competitive people who play ranked. There's the people who compete to try and make a living. And then there's, you know, all kinds of various, you know, people who shield bundles, and that's their content, right? There's people who react to content. There's people who do news, and there's all kinds of stuff in this ecosystem for Call of Duty. And it feels like BO7 is going to be fine for the whole year. Warzone doesn't really give me that vibe. So it may even be a point where, like, I like zombies, I like multiplayer, and you know, the lack of content on the Warzone side is really concerning, to the point where I might just consider uploading mainly that type of content for BO7 until we get MW4 with the new engine, getting rid of last gen and all the changes that'll come with that, because I know that I can have fun making content daily on multiplayer and zombies. Warzone hasn't given me that vibe. And this year it's going to be more of the same like we got this year. That's a big no for me. So we'll kind of see how that part goes. I like that this year it does feel a little bit different. I even tweeted about this saying, hey, look, it's very different. Something feels different. And regardless if COD is vocally saying they're nervous, or the quotes are saying they're too big to fail and all these other things, the reality is they're doing things this year that they have basically never done since I've covered Call of Duty. They've gone and made a bunch of changes, like we saw with the Vault skin pre-order bundle nonsense. We've seen them change perks already in multiplayer. They've done and highlighted a lot of very specific changes that have happened in zombies. Warzone, we really haven't gotten any news, so we'll see if any of that ends up coming into play. But the reality is, Battlefield, love it or hate it, like it or you know, you don't have an opinion on it, it seems like they've applied pressure to COD. From the outside looking in, it looks like they've applied some level of pressure. Obviously, their game comes out on the 10th, I believe. The beta comes out on the 2nd, so we'll be able to get a chance to play the beta before that comes out. And then the BR is scheduled to come out at the end of the October for Battlefield. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the way Battlefield plays. I mean, that's just a personal preference. I think it's still a fast-paced game, and there's tons you can do with it. I'm just not a fan of the gameplay loop, and that's just a personal preference. That's okay. I'll still be playing it and grinding it because there are loadouts in the Battle Royale based off the leaks, so I think I want to level up my guns so that when the Battle Royale comes out, I can at least try it with fully kitted loadouts. So we'll kind of see how that part goes. And to see if it's even popular, right? There's a lot of hype when something new comes out. There's a learning curve. The lack of SBMM that typically Battlefield has should be helpful in making sure that lobbies feel like sometimes you run into sweats and sometimes you don't. Even though I'm not necessarily a fan of tanks existing in a Battle Royale, I don't think that's, obviously it's Battlefield and they had it in their other game, but that's just an aside. Regardless, the main point is that Battlefield has done enough with their early access beta, the amount they've paid creators to hype up the game, and it genuinely be good is also like a pretty big deal. And a lot of people are really hyped for the launch of that, which I think really pushes the needle on COD implementing things that maybe they were hesitant on, and actually taking in player feedback, which, you know, people can say, hey, they do this every year. This is a little bit different. If you think this is the exact same as what's happened in the past 6-7 years, I mean, I'm agree to disagree. Because historically, feedback and those types of things have never impacted Call of Duty, and they've never basically been receptive to them almost ever. I've done a full video talking about all the various changes I've ever wanted, and basically none of those get implemented. for like 2 or 3 years after I suggest them. For one big example of this is in Warzone 2, prior early access and all that stuff. Basically, once they introduced that they were going to add backpacks, I said, backpacks will never work for Warzone. Just doesn't work. Blackout, it worked because it's a different system. But for Warzone, it would absolutely never work. And then a year and a half later, they removed them. Along with that, they've already made the multiple changes. They did the perk change that would have never happened in a previous year. In terms of some of the other stuff, the zombies being in the beta, that's actually kind of crazy. That's never happened either. And there's a lot of times first for COD where they're really taking in a lot of stuff we've been yapping about forever. I'm really hoping at COD next week. Like I said, I'll be live here on YouTube and on Twitch if you have a preference. So what I'm hoping for there is that they'll probably talk about disbanding lobbies and something about the SBMM/engagement optimized matchmaking, because those are pretty big problems. So it's kind of like I'm torn a little bit because I'm excited for Black Ops 7. I played it. I think the campaign I'll probably play a bunch just so I can get the camos, do a little bit of the end game stuff there. Multiplayer should be a lot of fun, despite the SBMM and disbanding lobbies. And then zombies, like, that'll probably be pretty cool too. Like, it's a win-win-win all the way across. I have tons of opportunity to play the game. And then Warzone. Blah. Like, what the hell are we doing? I don't know. I wish I could be excited about that, but they haven't really done much. Again, I appreciate everyone who supports the content. Like I said, I'll be there. If you want to go ahead and hang out, I know that they're going to be giving away some beta codes. So if you want to play the beta without pre-ordering, I'll probably have a bunch of beta codes too if you want to go ahead and hang out, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.